I still remember the exact moment I realized something was wrong. It was a Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago, and I was rushing to the conference room with my laptop bag slung over my shoulder. The presentation we'd been working on for 3 months was finally ready, and I couldn't wait to see our team's hard work displayed on that big screen. But when the slides appeared, my heart sank. There it was, slide after slide of brilliant analysis, innovative solutions, and strategic recommendations. Everything I had poured my soul into for the past quarter. Yet somehow, magically, my name had vanished from every single credit. "Great work, Marcus," our client, Sarah Chen from Technova Industries, said to my boss as she reviewed the deck. Marcus Wilson sat there, nodding with that smug smile I'd grown to despise, accepting praise for ideas that had kept me awake countless nights. I glanced around the room. My colleagues avoided eye contact. Some looked genuinely uncomfortable, while others seemed oblivious to what had just happened. Only Jessica, our junior analyst, shot me a sympathetic look. "The customer segmentation analysis is particularly impressive," Sarah continued, pointing to a slide that was entirely my creation. "This level of insight into the millennial market shows real understanding." Marcus leaned back in his leather chair. "Thank you, Sarah. My team and I really dove deep into the data. My team and I, as if I hadn't spent weeks building those models while he played golf with clients." After the meeting, I cornered Marcus in his office. The familiar smell of expensive cologne and leather furniture filled the space as I closed the door behind me. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't even look up from his computer. "If it's about the presentation, it went great. Sarah loved it." "Well, Kurt, my name wasn't on a single slide, Marcus. Not one." Finally, he looked at me, his gray eyes cold. "Listen, Alex, you did good work on the research, but this was a team effort, and as project lead, my name represents the entire team's contribution." "Team effort?" I could feel my voice rising. "I created that entire customer journey map. I built the financial models. I even wrote most of the executive summary." Marcus stood up, his 6-foot frame towering over me. "That's what you're paid to do. Execute my vision. If you have a problem with how I run my projects, maybe you should consider whether this is the right fit for you." The threat was clear. In corporate America, challenging your boss's narrative was career suicide. I knew plenty of talented people who'd been quietly pushed out for less. But as I walked back to my cubicle, something inside me refused to accept this. I'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let Marcus steal my work and threaten my career. The annual company retreat was coming up in 2 weeks. All the major clients would be there, including Sarah Chen. Maybe it was time to take a different approach. The next 2 weeks felt like me preparing for war. I arrived at the office earlier, stayed later, and meticulously documented every contribution I'd made to the Technova project. Screenshots of my original drafts, email timestamps showing when I'd sent ideas to Marcus, even recordings of brainstorming sessions where my voice could be heard proposing key concepts. "You're playing with fire," Jessica whispered during our coffee break on Thursday. The small break room was empty except for us, and she kept glancing toward Marcus's office. "He's already been asking around about your attitude problem since the presentation." I stirred my coffee slowly, considering her words. "What would you do, Jess, if someone stole credit for your best work?" She sighed, her young face showing wisdom beyond her years. "I don't know, but I do know that Marcus has connections all the way up to the C-suite. One word from him and what? I stay quiet and let him build his career on my ideas?" I shook my head. "I've been doing that for 2 years. Look where it's gotten me." The company retreat was being held at a luxury resort in Colorado. 3 days of networking, workshops, and presentations, with clients flying in from across the country. It was Marcus's favorite event, a chance to schmooze with decision makers while his team did the actual work. But this year would be different. I'd been tracking Sarah Chen's schedule, and I knew she'd be attending the innovation workshop on Friday afternoon, the same workshop where Marcus was scheduled to present his latest project insights. I spent my evenings practicing my pitch, refining my approach. This wasn't about revenge, it was about professional survival. In a world where perception often mattered more than reality, I needed to change the narrative. The night before we left for Colorado, I stayed late at the office, printing backup copies of all my documentation. The building was eerily quiet, with only the cleaning crew making their rounds. As I gathered my materials, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Marcus appeared in my cubicle entrance, his expensive suit slightly wrinkled from the long day. "Working late again, Alex?" His tone was casual, but there was something predatory in his eyes. "You know, I've been thinking about our conversation. Maybe I was too harsh. You're a valuable team member." I looked up from my papers, trying to read his intention. "I appreciate that, Marcus." "Good, because I'd hate for there to be any misunderstandings at the retreat. We're all representing the company after all. Professional unity is important." The message was clear: fall in line or face consequences. But as he walked away, I realized something had shifted inside me. The fear that used to paralyze me when he made these veiled threats was gone, replaced by something stronger: determination. The Rocky Mountain Resort was everything you'd expect from a corporate retreat venue. Sprawling conference rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows, networking lounges with leather furniture, and enough expensive catering to feed a small army. But as I stood in the main lobby on Thursday evening, watching Marcus work the room with his usual charm, I felt more focused than nervous. The first day passed without incident. Marcus delivered his opening presentation to polite applause, once again taking credit for insights I'd developed. I sat in the back row, documenting everything, waiting for my moment. Friday afternoon arrived with Colorado's typical mountain weather. Clear skies and crisp air that made everything feel possible. The innovation workshop was held in the resort's smaller conference room with about 30 attendees, including several key clients. Sarah Chen sat in the front row, her attention fully focused as Marcus began his presentation about revolutionary customer analysis techniques. I watched from the middle of the room as he clicked through slides that contained my work, my ideas, my late-night breakthroughs. The key insight, Marcus was saying, came from recognizing that traditional demographic models weren't capturing the nuanced behavior patterns of younger consumers. That was my insight. I'd presented it to him 6 months ago in a memo he'd initially dismissed as overthinking. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. During the Q&A session, Sarah raised her hand. "Marcus, this customer journey mapping is fascinating. Could you walk us through how you developed the methodology for tracking cross-platform engagement?" I held my breath. That methodology was entirely my creation, a complex system I'd developed using 3 different analytics platforms. Marcus had never even seen the raw data. "Well," Marcus began, his confidence wavering slightly, "it's a multi-layered approach that involves—" He was stumbling, using generic buzzwords instead of specific technical details. Sarah's expression shifted from interest to confusion as Marcus fumbled through an explanation that made no technical sense. "I'm sorry," Sarah interrupted, "but could you clarify the data integration process? How exactly did you synchronize the platforms to track user journeys across different touchpoints?" The room fell silent. Marcus's face was flushing red as he realized he couldn't answer a detailed question about work he'd never actually done. That's when I stood up. "Actually," I said, my voice steady and clear, "I can answer that question." Every head in the room turned toward me. Marcus's eyes widened with panic and rage, but it was too late. "I developed that methodology over several months," I continued, walking toward the front of the room. "The key was creating custom APIs to bridge the data gaps between platforms. Would you like me to explain the technical framework?" Sarah's face lit up with recognition. "You're Alex Morrison, aren't you? I remember you from the Technova presentation. You asked some very insightful questions about our user acquisition strategy." "That's right. And I actually built the entire customer journey mapping system that Marcus just presented." The room was dead silent now. I could feel the weight of 30 pairs of eyes, the tension thick enough to cut. Marcus stood frozen at the front, his career-defining moment becoming his worst nightmare. I spent the next 15 minutes walking through my methodology, answering technical questions that Marcus couldn't even understand, let alone explain. Sarah took notes furiously, asking follow-up questions that demonstrated she truly understood the value of what I'd created. When I finished, she stood up and approached me directly, ignoring Marcus entirely. "Alex, I'd like to discuss a potential consulting opportunity with you. Are you available for a private conversation after this session?" As the workshop ended and people filed out, Marcus cornered me near the back of the room. His face was pale, his usual composure completely shattered. "You have no idea what you've just done," he hissed. "Your career at this company is over." But I wasn't the same person who'd been intimidated by his threats 2 weeks ago. "No, Marcus," I replied calmly. "My career is just beginning." "This." 3 months later, I was sitting in my new office, not a cubicle, but an actual office with walls and a door, overlooking downtown Denver. The view of the Rocky Mountains in the distance served as a daily reminder of how much had changed since that retreat. Sarah Chen had offered me a position as senior analytics consultant with Technova Industries, the same day as the workshop. The salary was 40% higher than what I'd been making, with equity options and the freedom to build my own team. But the real victory wasn't the money or the title, it was the respect. "The client presentation went perfectly," Jessica said as she entered my office with a stack of reports. She'd followed me to Technova 2 months ago, and watching her confidence grow in an environment that valued her contributions had been one of the most rewarding parts of the transition. "They understood every technical detail?" I asked, reviewing her analysis. "Everyone, yes, and they asked when we could start implementing the recommendations." She paused, a slight smile playing at her lips. "You know, Marcus called me yesterday." I looked up from the reports. "Really? What did he want?" "He wanted to know if we were hiring. Apparently, things haven't been going well for him since the retreat." I'd heard through industry connections that Marcus had struggled to explain the sudden departure of his key team members to upper management. Without people like Jessica and me doing the actual analytical work, his subsequent presentations had been shallow and unconvincing. His reputation for producing innovative insights had quickly crumbled when he couldn't back up his claims with substance. "What did you tell him?" I asked. "That we're looking for people with integrity and technical skills." He hung up after that. I laughed, feeling a satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with justice. "Speaking of hiring, I want to talk to you about leading the new customer experience team." "Interested?" Her eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely. You've proven you can handle complex analysis, and more importantly, you understand that good work speaks for itself." As Jessica left to consider the offer, I turned back to my computer and the project proposal I'd been working on. It was for a major retail client, and the approach I was developing would revolutionize how they understood customer behavior across digital and physical channels. This time, my name would be on every slide. Not because I demanded recognition, but because I'd earned it through competence, integrity, and the courage to speak up when it mattered. The Chicago skyline glittered in the distance as evening approached. Somewhere in that maze of corporate towers, Marcus was probably working late, trying to rebuild a reputation based on borrowed brilliance. But I wasn't thinking about him anymore. I was thinking about the team I was building, the innovations we were developing, and the career I was creating on my own terms. The career that had almost been stolen from me, but had ultimately become stronger because I'd fought for it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply succeeding so completely that the people who tried to hold you back become irrelevant to your story. And as I finished the proposal that would become our biggest success yet, I realized that was exactly what had happened. The project that Marcus had tried to steal had become the foundation for something much bigger, a career built on authenticity, innovation, and the simple principle that good work should be recognized no matter who creates it.